Alright, you guys. I wanna first talk about this introduction. It's First Corinthians chapter 5 verses 9 through 13. And I'm gonna read it to you first, then I'm gonna go over what I got from it. I wrote to you in a letter not as to associate with sexually immoral people, by no means referring to this world's immoral people, or to the greedy and swindlers, or to idolaters, otherwise you would have to leave the world. But now I am writing to you not to associate with anyone who bears the name of brother, who is sexually immoral or greedy, an adulterer or a revelant, a drunkard or a swindler. Do not eat with such a person, for what is it to me to judge an outsider? Do you not judge those who are inside? But God judges outsiders. Put away the evil person from among yourselves. Alright, you guys. If you want it simple and plain, do not yoke yourself with those who are unevenly yoked. It says, what is there in common with a believer and an unbeliever? And, of course, those who are unbelievers are sexually immoral. Those who are have more of a sense, and you should feel some condemning if you step past those bounds, even though you're under grace. But also recognize when you're under grace, do not take it for granted. For even though it's given in abundance, it says that, God forbid that we keep on doing in that sin. So, 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 9 through 13. Let's see. And the most important part, it says at the end, verse 13, but God judges outsiders. Put away the evil person from among yourselves. Don't hang out with these people, especially by yourself. You can be, a real upright, walking hard person, but when you have a male and a female by themselves, automatically, the flesh is going to, attract to one another. Regardless of how spiritually strong you are, it's going to be some pull and push because of the nature, because of the flesh. You have to remember that. So, it's even worse when you hang out with those who are not of the word, who are not of the same yoke. So, this is just an introduction to, I know, some lonely people out there. You want to be loved, but you have to let go of the source of your sin. You have to let go of, of these websites. You have to, let's see, if you have a car and you find yourself driving to, this girl's house or this guy's house, your car needs to be taken away, obviously, because you're using it to feed that source, to feed the flesh, which it says, in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 13, but God judges the outsider, those who are not of the yoke. Put away the evil person from among yourselves. So, yes, the flesh is going to always want to feed itself, but you have to stay steadfast to this word. You have to be firm in your word, and you have to resist the devil, and he will flee. It says in the word that he has to. So, this is, the beginning of learning love, how to love another. Fearing God is also the beginning of loving him, learning to love him more. Fearing God is the beginning of love, period. And I also want to read to you let's see, Proverbs chapter 5. Because, a lot of people think that adultery is the actual act of having some intimate part with another person, but it's far more serious than that. And I'll read to you Proverbs chapter 5 right now. Alright, Proverbs chapter 5. Avoid seduction. Avoid going to clubs if you can't handle it. Avoid hanging out with that girl or guy if you can't handle. If you look into their eyes and you get lost and you start to act stupid, leave it alone. Tell them it's not you, it's just I'm taking my walk with Christ more seriously. So Proverbs chapter 5 says, avoid seduction. And I'm going to read to you, let's see, verses 1 through 14. My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Listen closely to my understanding, so that you may maintain discretion and your lips safeguard knowledge. Though the lips of the forbidden woman drip like honey, and her words are smoother than oil. Verses 1 through 3 right there. It goes to show the seduction of a woman. She flashes her eyes at you. She speaks sweet nothings in your ear. Yo, that's not no good. You know what I'm saying? In the end, she's as bitter as wormwood and as sharp as a double-edged sword. Yo, now, you have in the word that we use the word as a two-edged sword against the enemy. Now, the enemy tries to flip it around and use that tongue of seduction, that, voice of seduction, as a two-edged sword to cut us off. That's an example of the devil and his minions and his work trying to flip up the word and using it to cut us up. You know what I'm saying? Alright. Her feet go down to death. Her steps head straight for Sheol. She doesn't consider the path of life. She doesn't know that her ways are unstable. And this is where, this is very important. You have these people, they take pictures, thoughtlessly. You know what I'm saying? You have these short shorts. You have people taking pictures in bras and, boxers and stuff, and they're not thinking. It's like unknowingly knowing that you're seducing somebody, So now, my son, listen to me. Do not turn away from the words of my mouth. It means to listen to the instruction of the Lord. Do not take his word for granted, but heed it and keep it with you in heart. Have it written on your heart. Every time you feel like you're about to fall to seduction, come to the word. Read Proverbs chapter 5. Now we're on verse 8. Keep your way from her. Do not go near the door of her house. Not coincidentally, I just said before, you have the card, you have feet. Do not run to evil. You know what I'm saying? If you know that's your weakness, run to a brother. That's not being gay. You need help. Same thing with the girl. If you go into some guy house just to get something, it's not worth it. You're more precious than that. Be mindful. What's your life worth? I should ask you that. Alright. Keep your way far from her. Do not go near the door of her house. Otherwise you will give up your vitality to others and your years to someone cruel. Strangers will drain your resources, and your earnings will end up in a foreigner's house. At the end of your life, you will lament when your physical body has been consumed, and you will say, how I hated discipline, how my heart despised correction. I didn't obey the teachers or listen closely to my mentors. I was on the verge of complete ruin before the entire community. Now, alright, you have Let's see. Proverbs chapter 5, verses 9 and 10. Otherwise you will give up your vitality to others and your years to someone cruel. Strangers will drain your resources and your earnings will end up in a foreigner's house. Yo, all that you did in Christ, and you fall to this because you're not steady feeding yourself. You're just living how the way you want to live. All that production for the Lord, for the kingdom. Now what you did for God will stay. But now all that you had, all that the Lord has in store for you, you won't receive. You won't receive because, as it says, strangers will drain your resources and your earnings will end up in a foreigner's house. Like, you just turned your own blessing into a curse because of your wrongdoing of you're doing, your wrongdoing. It's the word, sometimes the word is just plain out, straight out there, like, your earnings will end up in a foreigner's house. Don't you want to be, an addition or a blessing to your own, temple, to your own future, instead of going to the merciless? When you submit to that seduction, you are giving up your life. You stop fighting that good fight of faith, and you lost hope because you're not reading. Let's see, Proverbs chapter 5, verse 11. At the end of your life, you will lament when your physical body has been consumed, and you will say, how I hated discipline and how my heart despised correction. The Lord been knocking on your heart the whole time. Don't go there. Don't drive there. Don't walk there. Don't call that person. Don't talk to that person. But you said you can handle it because you're grown. How you grown and you're not listening to the one who has a blueprint for your life? How are you grown and you steadily falling and whining over the same mistake over and over? How are you grown? How are you grown? No matter how old I get, I'm listening to my father's instructions because he's still living. I want to live again. You know what I'm saying? And it's for many more reasons than that. So, let's see. And it says, continuing from verse 13, I didn't obey my teachers or listen closely to my mentors. The Lord been sending people in your life to say, stop smoking, stop drinking, stop falling to seduction, stop falling to men, stop falling to women. And you still not listening because you think it feels good for a moment? That's exactly what it is. It feels good for the moment. Feed the flesh. You're destroying yourself. You're killing your spirit. Are you really degrading yourself? Like, do you really think you're not worth anything? And let's see, the last verse, it says, I was on the verge of complete ruin before the entire community. This is the funny thing. You proclaim that you're a Christian, right?